The Lord reaffirmed the law of common consent in this dispensation as well as in previous dispensations and in premortality. All matters were to be put to a vote. Ordination to priesthood offices in the Lord's church requires a vote of the church in all but one case. The one exception, ordinations in the mission field, where there is no branch, was made since there were no members to hold a vote under common consent. Where there were branches or organized stakes, a vote of common consent was necessary. Priesthood licenses given to those who had been ordained were also subject to a vote of the church, or from a conference where business was decided by a vote. All callings in the church were to be appointed by the voice of the church, meaning a vote of the church. The law of common consent requires that all those desiring to become members of the church first be accepted by a vote of the church before baptism, and then again before confirmation. It is the church members that determine worthiness. This also means that continued worthiness to be a member of the church was also determined by a vote of the church. Revelation in the church was and is subject to acceptance by a vote of the church under the law of common consent. This principle, called canonization, was observed from the beginning by the church. In 1835, the first edition of the Doctrine and Covenants was accepted at a General Assembly in Kirtland, Ohio, by a unanimous vote. Voting in the early church was not a pro forma exercise. It was a real vote, where candidates for office proposed by the Lord could be voted in or out. It was not a sustaining vote as currently practiced in the church. During the presidency of Joseph Smith, for example, Joseph had planned to replace Sidney Rigdon as his first counselor in the first presidency. However, the membership of the church voted to retain President Rigdon at a special conference held in October 1843. Joseph personally refused to accept Rigdon as his counselor, but the vote stood. Earlier, in November 1837, Joseph nominated Frederick G. Williams as a counselor in the first presidency, but the motion was rejected by a vote of the conference in favor of Hyrum Smith. Furthermore, as Joseph Smith explained in a letter to Orson Hyde and John E. Page, the vote of a church unit had the authority, under the law of common consent, to override the authority of the Quorum of 12 Apostles and the 70 if it so chose. In other words, the members of the church could choose to retain an apostate high priest at the head of their congregation and reject any attempt of the 70 or the 12 to remedy the situation. The law of common consent trumps everything.